right, everybody, welcome back to the show. Hope you had a great week. Today's guest is Michael Sargeant. Michael's a creative producer in charge of online education programming at Magnum Photography. Michael and I met back in 2021 when we were shooting a job for Magnum with Gregory Halpern up in Buffalo, New York. Michael's a great guy. He's based out of London in the UK, but he gets to travel all over the world creating this excellent educational content for their platform. They're going for a very masterclass style, behind the scenes, in the weeds approach with this stuff. And he gets to follow around just some incredible photographers and kind of gets a behind the scenes look at how they think. We talk a lot about Michael's journey from almost going into the army at a young age to discovering his love of photography, all the way to landing his job at Magnum. If you like what you hear today, please give us a like or a subscribe on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Anything you can do to help us get into the eyes and ears of new people really helps us build up this show, and I would really appreciate it. So now, on to the interview with Michael. Well, so I guess we can get into it, but before we do, it's good to see your face.
Oh yeah, no, good to see you too. It's been a while since we.
It's been a while since May when I was in London.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a little intro? Like, give us your name and you know what you're all about, what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So my name's Michael Sargeant. I work for an organization called Magnum Photos. It's a photo agency founded in 1947 by some of the kind of most well-known photojournalists and photographic artists of that period, people like Henri Cartier-Bresson, Robert Capa, and the like. And I've been working for about 5 years at this point. Current role is creative producer with the responsibility to basically create our online learning programs, on-demand courses, basically. So we work with a wide range of people, but our core goal is to make kind of accessible education on demand with our photographers. So an example to compare is like a masterclass, but specialized, a masterclass.com, but specialized in photography, with some of the kind of some of the world's leading artists or photographic or photographers rather. So that's what I do. The role is broad. It's different. I'm part of a creative team that does a lot of different kinds of content and great work around the world. And Magnum as an organization is an unusual thing. It's our 75th year anniversary, so it's one of the longest running artist cooperatives. It's different because it's owned by the photographers that we represent as a group, and it kind of branches across the kind of cultural spheres, commercial work, obviously the education sector in photography, and generally is also. It holds one of the most important kind of archives of the 20th century. So, Robert Capa's D-Day landing images to kind of some of the most important moments in the history of the 20th century. So it's a really interesting place to work and an interesting place to be.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy if anyone spends time. Like I knew about Magnum way before you and I actually worked together. It's pretty crazy, just like the breadth of everything that's behind that name. I'm so curious how you wound up there because you're quite the photographer yourself, and
thank you.
Definitely something that you are into, like as a creative person. And so I think I want to start there. Is like.
Yeah.
Where did, I guess you could rewind as far as you want to go. It's like, when did you first kind of figure out that, being creative is in my blood? Like, how did you discover photography? Like, how did that all kind of coalesce for you?
For me, finding kind of creativity or photography specifically, it happened at a period of my life, not to go straight into the deep stuff, but when I was 16, I was going to join the army. I was convinced that's what I was going to do. So I my kind of home life and so on was a bit tumultuous. There was a lot going on. My mother had been very unwell, and I felt I didn't have too much structure going on, and I didn't know how to kind of deal with a lot of my restlessness or my kind of imagination, frankly. So when I was, in college, I was, doing after school. I never did art in school. I didn't ever touch that. I didn't do it initially when I went to college, and I was just like a bit lost, to be honest. So I was like, I'm going to join the army, something that I'd always wanted to do since I was really young. I don't know why, but I think it was kind of the sense of adventure of it. And the structure it would probably provide. But then, my mum, bless her, she had this incredible collection of like magazines, anti-war magazines from the Vietnam War. And I remember she tried so hard as like a mission to stop me going to war by showing me the brutality of it through photography often. So there's that aspect, and also just, my grandfather and, getting hands on a camera for the first time. These were important moments. And when I did carry on with college. I did the first year, and part of that was photography. And it's really like such a cliche, but the moment I went into that dark room and you see those pictures appear in the chemicals, is like, it really engaged me in a way that I hadn't really felt in a long, long time, or maybe ever. So then my kind of mindset shifted, and I maybe found a purpose or some way of expressing myself, which is a bit healthier than, going to war, as I probably would have.
Sure.
That's pretty intense. But, and then, through that event, I did another course, and it really just got deeper and deeper. And it really was like a calling in some way or another. And it was fun, it was fun to be making stuff. And I realized, when I look back on my childhood, I love drawing. I loved building little models, Lego, all this. I've always enjoyed the process of having nothing in front of you to having a final outcome.
It's really interesting, because I think everybody, to some degree, right, as a child, you're presented with different things, right? So you're presented with not only the basic building blocks of education, but you're also presented with things that have a more creative palette, like art classes and what have you, music classes. And it's, basically designed to make people well-rounded, but also helps kind of start to develop someone as an individual, where their interests lie. So it's interesting how you go through life and how people's predisposition, it's when they're presented with kind of these creative opportunities, even if it's ultimately not where they wind up, if they become a creative professional, like you're working in photo now. But if you went through and discovered something about art that triggered something, it's just interesting to see kind of the split, how people go. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's a moment where it just kind of maybe clicks with you, where you feel, where it feels right. I'm my kind of character is that occasionally I go through stints of being utterly obsessed with something, or some kind of aspect of it. Could be art, it could be football, it could be whatever, right? But it was really important for me when I was coming up and growing up, that I had a moment like that to kind of give me just to find passion in something, which was really, really important to me. I mean, it could be, I remember writing stories in English class, and storytelling really is a big aspect of this as well. The idea that you can kind of, tell someone's story through any sorts of medium. And same with music, as you mentioned. I'm not a musician. I've never been very good at that, but, that kind of period in your life, you start just seeking out new music and experiences, and you go to gigs, and you're scrolling the internet for the latest band, and I got really into like emo music and like, stuff where people are expressing themselves very raw, very real, very like, emotive. And that's sort of where I've ended up landing in a lot of the things I consume, whether it's film photography, whether it's like books as well. But yeah, I mean, I got there and I got into it. And then I must admit, I moved on to the next step in that path, which a lot of people do, is go to university, and I lost it. I lost a lot of that drive. Maybe I had oversaturated myself for a while. I got distracted by what happens at college or uni, when you're partying or you're doing whatever. This is where my kind of path changed from making images myself all the time to thinking about other people's and maybe being more interested. Maybe I had a crisis of confidence in my own ability or the value of my work versus other people. That's always been something that's been a struggle of mine. But I plowed on through. I got through the educational kind of the institution of university, and struggled with all the red tape and the limits and the modularity perhaps of their programs. And I found university thoroughly frustrating because, the way where I was, certainly I moved from my hometown to a small city, a town about 300,000 people called Derby, in the Midlands of the UK. And the first few years were great, but it felt like I was starting from scratch again. I lost momentum, and the nature of the course, it was super conceptual, actually. Like they wanted you to preconceive a lot of it, and I was more of a documentary photographer at that point. I'd like to go out into the world and see what happens, and it became a bit too predefined.
So you were going to university for photography?
Yeah, for photography.
Oh, okay, great.
So yeah, I did. I did this like 1 year at college. I was doing many different things. Yeah. Then I moved on to a 2-year course at college, which was specifically photography. Then I did 3 years at university. So I studied it. And
it's hard, man. Like, just as an aside, I totally understand what it's like to get wrapped up in whatever stage of life you're at. I mean, I always say to myself, I wish, hindsight's 2020, right? If I could do it all again, maybe my focus would be a little bit different. Or if I had, or maybe I had a little more foresight, maybe I would have made slightly different choices. But yeah, I mean, it's also like you need to be able to live your life and have certain experiences and like, sure, party at college. I mean, that's fine. Everybody should. But I totally understand like feeling a little lost. And, for me, it was more post-university, like feeling lost and that kind of thing. Totally get it. Totally makes sense. Sorry.
After you finish, you're just lost, aren't you? I mean, like you lose your support network, your structure. It disappears, and it you're not really prepared for it when you finish.
And that's part of it. I think one thing that maybe doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that the older I get, it's like easier for me to have some distance and then look back and kind of reassess things. But it's like, I think getting lost is part of everybody's journey at some point. And it just depends on how you like deal with it and come out of it. But yeah, I mean, specific to a creative journey, getting lost is a huge part of even just finding not only what you're passionate about, but finding your voice.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you have to go through these things, and each step, each fork in the road, it has an impact on who you're going to be and what you're going to be interested in and what you want to say as well and how you say it. I mean, if I'd have gone down that original path, I would be a different person completely.
Sure, I
would not be who I am now.
Going back to like university, you weren't really vibing with the program all that much when at the end of the day, it maybe wasn't a great fit for you, even though you were like studying and immersing yourself in the medium and in the practice. You said you're more of a documentarian, or that's what you gravitate to. So at the end of university, you graduate with a degree in not photojournalism. What's your degree in?
So I graduated with a BA in photography, fine art photography, basically.
Fine art photography.
Whatever that means,
Sure.
which could mean an awful lot of things.
Means a lot of different things for a lot of different people.
Just photography with more of the art being the core. So that's what I finished with. But, it was interesting really because my immediate path after uni, I ended up staying put in that town because of choosing that town, Derby. There was logic behind it. Number one, I wanted to get far away from my hometown. I wanted to escape a little bit my home. I wanted a new start. I wanted to start from scratch, somewhere and find my independence, find my way forward, right? And one of the things that attracted me to that place is, the university itself had lots of great facilities. It was quite lots of brand new photo darkroom studios and so on. But it also had a photography festival that was based there. It's called Format Festival. And it's one of the larger ones in the UK. I guess for listeners, a photography festival is effectively a moment in time where a town or this town, it takes over a lot of spaces. There's a contemporary art space called Quad, which was the main hub of it. And then the museum, empty shops, university and other spaces would kind of come alive with art photography from all over the world. So, it was this, and I think I liked it a lot because it was in Derby of all places. It's not in London. It wasn't in Brighton or some other big place. It was in this middle of the country. And the whole purpose was about showing normal people great work and different points of view and challenging stories in the public realm and for free. So, that was one of the things that attracted me. And then, interestingly, towards the end of my final year, I miss these days so much. But in the days of Flickr and in the days of Tumblr, in the glory days of those platforms, I ran a blog, a photo blog, and it started out as like a simple visual diary or like a place for me to put my work that I was inspired by. And, I was obsessively looking for work, like I mentioned about music. Finding music was such a big thing when my, between 14 and 16. And at this point in my life, it was like finding great new work, emerging talent or projects that were really important. And, I used this place as a bit of a dumping ground for that kind of inspiration. And I formed a Flickr community where you could like submit work and then it could be shown. That blog was called Show Me Pictures, which is such a cringe name now, I would say.
Show Me Pictures. I don't know, man. I think it's, it is what it is. It says what it is. For the record, people still upload stuff to Flickr. I don't know about Tumblr. Yeah. I used to have a Tumblr site a million years ago, but Flickr's still sort of a thing, right?
Yeah, Flickr is still a thing. I mean, these things change over time, but I mean, there was a period there between like 2009 and 2011.
There was a golden age for sure.
Golden age. And that really was enlivening my experience in terms of photography specifically, but also people would share like clips or like stills from film. And, it really got me interested in it in a whole other way. Yeah. And that's when I started to think about other people's work in a different way and I became more interested in that than my own. For a lot of different reasons, but maybe like I said about my confidence in what I was doing, I'd maybe lost the buzz of me making the work. I got kind of, I'm not that academic either, and all the academic side was bringing me down a bit. So I kind of looked at people's work more than I looked at my own, and in fact, it actually led me to kind of. It formed a pathway for me to kind of get a job or like to start interning for free at my own expense. And I'm not from money. I was so skint doing that, incredibly poor, interning at this festival and this art center while working in a cafe, right? And I'd stepped into the space, to that organization, that festival that I'd been so inspired by, and that was kind of where a new kind of fork in that road occurred for me, which led me to become eventually the assistant curator at that art center.
So let me ask you this: how do you feel like coming from a humbler background impacted how you viewed the world creatively? Like how it impacted your own motivation and your own desires and like how you perceive things from a creative perspective, if that makes sense.
I mean, absolutely, yeah. I mean, certainly it makes me, my eye is drawn to kind of the everyday, people, the challenges of life, but like not in that kind of glorified way or whatever. I just, I guess it just makes me, I like things grounded in reality, which aren't, too fantastical or, I guess it's just, it's something I mean, if I was going to go out there and it made me want to make an impact, and it made me want to kind of, I had to try hard for it, right? I mean, and I always felt like I don't fit into, say, specifically some components of the art world at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was curious about, because at least for me and other people I've talked to that are from similar backgrounds, it's somehow I always in some ways feel like an outsider in certain circumstances. Yeah. Not that I feel like I've had to like prove myself or something, but I just feel like my concept of certain scenarios is a little bit different. And it makes you work really, really fucking hard, which is great. Work ethic
really
is
fucking hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I'm a workaholic in some ways. I've inherited a lot of this from my mum. She was a single mum. She was struggling. You kind of take these examples, and then you also know you have to try harder because you don't have there's no kind of fallback often, right? And this has always been, it's been a really complicated thing for me personally, internally. I think imposter syndrome is something that people have and suffer with no matter where they come from, sure. But
it's crazy. I could do a whole hour just on imposter syndrome. But yeah, it's a real thing that even people at the very top of their game totally struggle with regularly.
Yeah. I mean, and I've also struggled. I mean, that kind of ties into this idea of like, who cares? Who cares?
Right.
Why? And this is something that, I know. In some ways, I still make my own work, but like not so seriously. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, just because of the nature of my job, or maybe I'm better at doing other things. Like enabling other people to do great work, I hope. I found that, that was a new purpose discovered in these jobs that I had after uni, when it was kind of working in the arts, but as more of that it within the institution versus being the artist. The privilege of that was immense, because
that's quite the self-discovery to have, that there's a part of you that feels the purpose to elevate others, to encourage other creatives to do their best work, to kind of be like a shepherd for other creative voices. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody wants to do that. So it's very cool that you like felt it as like an internal calling, like, hey, this is something I'm good at and something that I feel like I should be doing. And having worked with you, I totally see it. I totally see it.
Well, I mean, also it's an attitude. I mean, I don't know. I don't really believe in hierarchy. Maybe I'm a bit. I don't know what that makes me, but like, I just don't. We're all in it together in a way. If you're an artist, I know you are. It's the thing. The problem is that, and this is, I think, a lot of young emerging talent or artists don't realize, is that the business it is a business, and there's only so much space for people, and it can become so, because you're so involved in it personally, or it's your work, and so much of it is entwined within your kind of ego and your self-esteem, and like how valuable you feel when you're doing really personal work. And I think me personally, I was too vulnerable, or like I was shielding myself too much when I was making my own work seriously, because I struggled with criticism and so on, because I didn't have a strong foundation to start with from an emotional standpoint. Artists are so committed to their work, and so many of them out there, they do it again and again, and they keep going and keep going, and without any success, or, and I can see why people would stop doing it. It's such a hard thing to do, to be a creative, to be an artist, to go down that path and commit to it, because you're completely entwined in your work. A lot of people are, and this has given me a lot of it's informed what I do now and how I do it. But having struggled a little bit through making work in university, and finding that kind of to actually be interesting. It's just, working in the gallery after, and working with a lot of regional artists and people who are emerging. It's just a hard business to be in the art world. To be an artist is such a commitment, and often people are making work which is very much like connected to who they are, or it might be very personal. Especially photographers, they do a lot of work which is kind of taps into the personal. And if you don't get success, or you find that you're not being heard, your voice isn't being heard, or people aren't seeing your work, I mean, it must be completely demoralizing.
Yeah, specific to the art world, whether it's if we're speaking of photography, or we're speaking of painting, or pick the medium, it doesn't really matter. It seems very unforgiving, like very feast or famine, where I've had the opportunity to film and work with some very, very well-regarded, very well-to-do artists who are making incredible work and like making a ton of money. And then there's like nothing in the middle, and then the people who are struggling.
Yeah,
that's my perception of it. I could be way off, but that's what it seems like to me. So yeah, I mean, it's such a weird space to spend time in.
It is a weird space. And as you say, if you're coming from a specific background, I mean, it has a huge problem, the art world, or in creative industries in general. But think about the people that are from, underrepresented communities, or people who are lower income, people that I would class myself as that's where I grew up. That's a lower income kind of space. The uncomfortableness of like being in that environment. I mean, I remember one time I went to Venice Biennale. We had like a stand. Our stand was fun. We had like a crazy golf or mini golf designed by artists, which was quite interesting. Having that there was great fun. But the art world is full of money, basically, and it's you have to. It's just there's so much work which is just, it sells for millions of dollars, or it's just it's purely decorative stuff, basically, or it's got all this kind of hype around it, or like academics talk about it in this way, and it seems it's presented as important, but it's not that important. And that's going back to what I am interested in, or what I was interested in. It's people who make work about real story, like real stories about real people. And
it caters more to your background. It caters to what you knew and how you grew up, and that totally makes sense. I love that, and I could see how, based on your background, you wind up in a job like Magnum, because everything, it's all documentary, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the lines are blurred now.
The lines are blurred. I mean,
we have a lot of documentary work.
Yeah. It's blurry lines, but none of it's like really studio work. It's people. At least everything I know that you've worked on is like people out
people out in the
making
world
photos,
usually.
like out in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in this art world. You're doing that. When did you make the move to London? How long have you been in London? Actually, I don't know.
I've been in London the same time I've been at Magnum for about 5 years. So
Okay.
I worked at this place, Format Festival and Quad for a good amount of time. I think maybe 6 years or so. And it was really a special place. It was like a family, but it's a publicly funded space. So, there's not much money. People don't get paid much. It's just about passion. And that's, again, one of the problems of the art space and creative jobs is that you do the work because you love the work and you get paid nothing for it often, or very little. And before I joined Magnum, I think I'd done as much as I could there, but I had a lot. I'll be very honest. I had a lot of, I thought twice about it. I wasn't sure if Magnum was going to be right for me, but when I was in college, me and my friend at the time would be like, "Michael, you're going to be a Magnum photographer," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." And I'm not a Magnum photographer, but I work there now, which is pretty cool. But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was worried about like going there because of what Magnum maybe is seen as or has been seen as for a long time. It's kind of like this impenetrable institution of photography. It maybe has some elitism, out. It seems as maybe it's an elite space, and even the language sometimes or has been used about it would position it in that way. It's kind of monolithic, and it's so important. It's such an important thing, and I was really worried about how I would fit in, in terms of my character and who I am at that place. But when the opportunity came up, it was a new job. It was to develop this kind of these online courses, something that would be more accessible than the workshops that are on offer, because workshops are expensive and some of Magnums are expensive.
Totally, yeah.
Some are very, very affordable. Some are free. I mean, there's a whole range. But, I was apprehensive about it. I was apprehensive because I was also very settled. But it felt like the challenge that I needed to kind of take on, to kind of go and really take my own self, my own energy, put my energy into something new, completely new, and build something from scratch was the exciting aspect. And I really wanted to take that on. So
yeah,
it was there. And I someone I was working with at the time knew someone at Magnum, and they kind of, I was like, oh, is this good? I mean, it came around and it happened quite quickly. And, in a maybe kind of unconventional way.
It seems so well catered to you and your personality, and kind of like now having this conversation, like where you wanted to be in terms of working creatively, but also elevating others and giving opportunity to others as well. Like in terms of making courses, like as a side note, I've had a couple of friends who have actually watched the Greg Halpern course we made, and they really enjoyed it. And it's like, I love that. I love the fact that it's like making this thing that had this stigma way more accessible to people who are in all different like creative fields. And, most of my friends are in film. So it's like cinematographers who I respect, who are like, hey, this is really great, and I'm getting a lot out of it, and it looks awesome. I'm like, sweet, this is perfect. And the fact that exists, and you're trying to get a peek behind the curtain at these really stellar talents in inaccessible ways is super cool.
I mean, I was lucky. I applied for a different job. I applied for a job which was like to make workshops in the real world happen. That kind of thing, and that got taken by someone, and there was like, oh, there's this other one that's available, and I was like, I was at the point in my life where, one of my goal at that point was to move to London before I was 30, and I was like, I think I was 28 or something at the time, because I'd stayed in Derby for like nearly 10 years, which had been great for my career in lots of different ways. I'd traveled a lot with my work. I'd gone to, festivals around Europe and all over the place, and, was doing mentorship and whatever. It was awesome. But I needed to change my life and the trajectory of it, and to kind of do something new. And in the end, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't care what the job is. I'm sure I can figure it out. And thankfully, they took me on. But then I was presented with this completely new challenge, because I've always worked before Magnum in the public sector. So funded by the Arts Council in England, or from European funds or whatever. Right, basically things that you have to ask the money for and then deliver on a project. I had this issue when I moved to Magnum about some people in my life, in my kind of network, kind of jokingly but kind of seriously called me a sellout. Like, they were like, wow, you're going to work for a commercial organization, you're going to the dark side. And that, joking aside, was a bit of like oh God, well, am I going to be suited for this? Is this really what I care about? But I saw enough value in the role and the potential of it, where I felt, I have an opportunity here to do some good work and provide something of value to people at a lower cost. I mean, the courses are still, they're $99, so they're not cheap, but
that's still way more accessible than a lot of other things out there, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And to have some positive impact for people out there. And, also, of course, I can't deny that the idea of working with some of my photographic idols, people like Alec Soth, people like Gregory Halpern, people of that ilk, I was excited by that prospect. And it's been an interesting journey so far. As long as it was centered into this kind of space of providing something for other people who want answers, people who are, the opportunity to demystify some of the way it works, and to basically allow people to peek behind the curtain in the creative process, something which is always fascinating to me, to see how people work and the commonality, the failures, the struggles, they're all felt by even the most accomplished photographers. Alec Soth is nervous about a project, like the same nervousness that I would have. There's the uncertainty of like, what am I doing? Is this right? Am I on the right path creatively in terms of this project? These are questions that we all have every day, and they're shared amongst everyone. Yeah, if nothing else, I think that's such a great takeaway, is that you've had the opportunity to work with photographers that you idolize from a creative perspective, and to know that they all struggle with the same crap you struggle with. I've had that experience too. It's so freeing in that regard, to just know that like everybody's just a person. Everybody's kind of paranoid about their own creative worth, just the same as you are. It's really helpful in a way, and really helps put a lot of this world in perspective.
And the job, and what I think I've learned about working in this field, and being creative, as I kind of mentioned from the top, is that collaboration for me is invaluable. Like, to work with people, to bounce ideas around. I mean, going back to that isolation that a lot of us feel when we finish our studies, it's just it's really challenging if you don't have people that you can trust, and people you can lean on in some regard, in terms of like, is this okay? Is this good? Am I making work of value? Or, just to share these, have conversations where you realize you're both fucking it all up. If you have those conversations with people more often, if you create a little group between you, or, you're going to learn quicker together than you are on your own, right? You're going to quit, you'll fail and learn. You can share that insight. And I think that's, something that I've absolutely found to be invaluable in this working life in a creative field. You've got to kind of fail. You have to fail. Failure is literally key. And you have to start and fail and continue. That's kind of seems to be the pattern for most of the photographers that I've worked with or artists that I've worked with. That's
very cool. That's very, very cool. So what's next? What's next for you? Are you gonna do you want to take some time to work on some personal work, or just?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, the shoot that we were both on in Buffalo, I think that was a moment for me where I kind of zoomed out and I was like, wow, this is just amazing to be here, to see someone produce. I mean, so for people listening, in the shoot for this, we only have 5 days of the photographer, and we spent 2 of those days on location. We went around, Buffalo. We went to Niagara Falls one morning, and we were with Gregory Halpern as he was making work, in the street of finding strangers, but also some prearranged shoots. And the volume of work he made in 2 days, because he was being active and, partly because we were there, but, the volume and the quality of the work was absolutely incredible. And
it was insane
to see him in the darkroom, printing these out, these kind of color contact sheets and snipping them out and laying them down. I was just like, it took me all the way back to the point of like the ignition, the spark of like, wow, look what you can do with a camera and some film.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that like so many people, and I've gone down this rabbit hole, still do, get obsessed with like gear, cameras, lenses, all this other stuff. It was pretty phenomenal to see Greg roll around for a couple of days, one camera, one lens, a whole buttload of film, and like just literally build and then get all these photos and contact sheets done, and then build a story just by like flipping the contact prints around and reordering them on the table. It was so cool. Very inspiring to see that it doesn't take that much to do a lot. You just need the right motivation.
Yeah. And you just need a bit of that drive. You have to get out the door. It's a cliche again, but like you have to get out the door. You have to go and do it. Yeah. You have to have that drive to go out and interact or to make it happen. I mean, obviously this won't apply to everyone's kind of working. Some people are more still life or whatever, but still, you still need to do it, and you have to work. And I saw this quote from Paul Graham the other day, a fantastic photographer, Paul Graham, and it was circling around like social media, and it's just, his advice is basically you have to start and it will be shit. You have to start and the work will be shit, and it will be shit, and it will continue to be shit, and then it will be better, and then it will get better again, and then it will be maybe great. And that again is that kind of quote, that kind of like little thing that you have to in your head. Is like, it isn't
it's so
just
true.
about
It's
and
so
each
true.
iteration, you're moving on. It's the same as the editing process for anything. You'll know that in film. The first draft is like rough, ready, not quite there. Then you move some things around, and then you kind of put some B-roll and some gloss on, and it's like suddenly becomes alive. And then you have the music, and it's just like, wow, we're making something here. And that feeling of making is just so powerful. When you get into that and you're in the momentum of it, it's just brilliant.
Seeing something come together from finally in reality, like you've seen it through from concept to reality, and seeing that come together really is quite magical. And always will be.
It is magic.
Always will be.
Yeah. It is. And going back to what you originally asked, so after that, I got myself the camera that I needed, because I was without a camera at that point. That's how lapsed of a photographer I was. I didn't have any gear. I was like, oh, I'm done with that. And then it just sparked me. I sorted out what I needed, and I have been shooting again. So
great.
It's just 5 days going away, immersing yourself, and having a good time, having a good time with the people there. Because at this point it'd been about a year since we'd shot the last one because of various like scheduling issues and stuff.
Sure.
And in those lulls, I'm not going to lie, a lot of my day-to-day job can be very administrative. It can be like, marketing campaign or this and that. And I still find that incredibly engaging, but
it's work. It's work.
It's work. It's that kind of day-to-day, keeping it alive. But then when you get there, it's thrilling. It's so good. My anxiety peaks like to the highest level. And in some ways it kind of makes me do my best work, which maybe isn't healthy. But, just this recent few months, I've been to Salvador in Brazil to shoot with one of our photographers. And then we went after 2 weeks later, I was in Alaska filming. Which
I'm bummed I couldn't go to Alaska with you guys. I'm so sorry.
I was gutted you weren't there. And we had a good time, going to the local bar, Pioneer Bar. I mean, you've just got to have fun on these things. And
you do.
And even if I often am in these situations, the client, I just can't live like that and remove myself. I want to be part of the gang and just have a good time and be with people and enjoy it and be creative and have fun.
Yeah, I think you struck a really great balance because you definitely do that, but you also make sure the job gets done, and I commend you for it. You've found a really good balance.
Yeah.
I definitely want to know if you actually start putting out some of your personal work. I definitely want to see it.
Thank you. I realize that's should share.
Everybody sucks. It's fine.
Yeah. But I guess that's the thing. The pressures of of social media. I mean, I'm putting pictures out which are very like snapshot stuff because that's just like I've got my point and shoot and I'm shooting on that and it's fucking expensive. Film is ridiculous.
So expensive.
Processing is horrible. But
film shooting is so expensive.
But it's what I like and fine. And meanwhile, I'm toiling away in the background, making some work. And again, another thing which, I really, straight away I realized kind of in my first interaction with a lot of these photographers who are at that level is that, work, if I'm going to create a project that's meaningful, a photographer, say I want to make a photo book, or like something like that. Or a major photography project, a major body of work. It's not about spending a month on it. It's years. It takes years and years and years to form something which is like enough in what I've seen out there. And again, going back to education, the frustration I had was that it was like you'd be given 3 weeks or a month or something like that to kind of generate new projects, new kinds of work on these kind of different thematics or different styles. So you could never build momentum or like work on one thing singularly. And that's why throughout my career, I've been interested in giving an alternative educational experience because frankly, I wish I could have had one of these courses or have an Alec or Greg talk about their process so openly and to kind of break down the realities of it then, because I think it maybe would have changed my thinking. And now you're actively working to change the thinking of other people for the better, which is great. I mean, all I want in any of the work that I am doing for Magnum is to have the potential for it to inspire someone. That is it. And it's really, again, just it's utilizing all the experiences of the people around like us. So the photographer obviously is the star of the show there, but the way that we kind of structure them and work together to make it engaging through like, again, your incredible cinematography on that one, following him around fast, getting these angles, making it seem really immersive and exciting and beautifully done. Like it's not done cheaply. It's not just to earn a few bucks for a company. We really want to make it the best it can be because that's where the values of Magnum really are. It's like, how could we possibly not make something of documentary value, I suppose, when we're that agency.
I was just going to say, I think those intentions really show through in the final product. I think you've really achieved those goals.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope so. And I hope people like them. That's all. Yeah. I don't get much feedback about them, but I hear a few nice things sometimes, and that's all that all I really want and want to care about is that people have an enjoyable experience, honestly. And well, it's just, what's the point otherwise?
Right.
What is the point? And it's been fantastic to learn like new skills and to see people like yourself in action, and it's brilliant to just bring all those components together in one thing at the end. But
I love it. It's such a great perspective.
And I think creativity is just, it comes in different forms. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be behind the camera. You
For sure.
can be creative in lots of different ways.
It takes in the film industry, I mean, literally, it takes a village to make anything.
Absolutely.
And every single person's important. And so it's nice to know that goes across the aisle to like other people's perspectives, like someone,
totally.
even though you adamantly don't want to be the client, quote unquote, that you have that perspective, that you have that understanding, I think goes a really long way.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So I think this might be a good place to end it. If somebody wanted to find you on the internet or the socials, where would they do that?
They can find me at Michael__Sargeant, which is SARGEANT, on Instagram. And that's kind of all I have, to be honest.
Not bad. That's not a bad thing to just have one.
Yeah, just one. It's just like keeps the brain. I mean, and people are interested in we've talked a lot about Magnum courses and that kind of stuff, but that can be found at, magnumphotos.com/learn. That's where you can find that stuff if people are interested.
Magnumphotos.com/learn.
That's correct. Yeah.
Cool. Great.
But yeah, just one thing to say is that I am still totally out of place, scared, imposter syndrome to the max, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. So
yeah, you and me both, baby. And it's all good.
And it's just a good wild ride, and as long as we're making good shit while we're doing it, I'm happy.
All right, dude. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
All right, there you have it. That's Michael Sargeant from Magnum Photography. Just to reiterate, in case you missed it, you can find him on Instagram at Michael__. That's 2 underscores, Sargeant. And you can learn more about the programming he's working on at magnumphotos.com/learn. Many thanks to Michael again for being on the show today. If you want to find out more about this podcast, you can go to nosetpath.com. Or you can check us out on Instagram at NoSetPathPodcast. And if you want to find out more about me, your host, my name's Drew English. You can find me at drewenglish.com or on Instagram at Drew English with 2 H's at the end. Thanks again for being here, everybody, and we'll see you next week.